Good afternoon and thanks for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Lauren Lemanchek. Minnesota's first severe storm of the season dropped hail across areas south of the Twin Cities. This video is from St. Peter and you can see the hail pouring from the sky. Our cameras captured that right in the thick of it in Denison and Cannon City. We also saw some washed out roads, broken windows, and damaged roofs and siding. The hail was reported in some spots to be 3 inches in diameter. One family we spoke with says the metal and plastic components on their farm equipment are dented at best, completely wrecked at worst.
Some of the kids went to the basement because there was tornado warnings and sirens at that point, and it was so loud you couldn't tell what was happening outside.
Now, fortunately, all of their animals were safe. The National Weather Service described the hail as plowable, saying it's not too often that hail accumulates like snow. And check out this video of a reported tornado in Amboy, Minnesota. Many people spotted this one and sent in pictures and videos. This is from our news partners at NPR News around 6:30 last night. Just in this afternoon, we are learning the U.S. and Iran could go back to the negotiating table as soon as this week. Peace talks to end the war in Iran fell apart last weekend, with Iran saying the U.S. is demanding too much. Meantime, 2 U.S.-sanctioned tankers passed through the Strait of Hormuz amid the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports. The first to make it through the waterway since President Trump vowed to cut off the key trade route entirely, though the actual blockade stopped short of this. NBC's Matt Bradley reports from Tel Aviv.
So it's been about a day since President Trump imposed his blockade on the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this all started, of course, with Iran saying that they were going to be blockading the Strait of Hormuz until the U.S. and Israel stopped their attacks against Iran. Ever since those negotiations, the direct negotiations between the U.S. and Iran and Pakistan failed over the weekend, President Trump has said that he was imposing his own blockade, preventing oil and gas and other ships going back and forth to Iran in an effort to try to strangle the Iranian economy and subdue them that way. So far, it doesn't look like it's working. Already, 2 ships have passed through the Strait of Hormuz, both of them sanctioned by the United States, and nothing seems to be done about them. One of them was a Chinese ship. Now, China has been particularly concerned about the Strait of Hormuz because it relies in part on Iranian oil, one of the few countries in the world that does so. And energy analysts have said that there's a real risk here that because oil is a globally traded commodity, while these price pressures that the U.S. is imposing with its blockade on Iranian oil sales and any other revenues they're getting might actually hurt the Iranian economy quite a bit, it could also have the effect of driving up oil prices worldwide. Oil is a globally traded commodity. So even if sanctioned oil that only goes to a couple of different countries, if the price increases for that, it will increase globally. So this could have a further knock-on effect of further raising the price of oil, further snarling up international trade, while not actually resolving the impasse over the Strait of Hormuz and America's continuing war with Iran. Matt Bradley, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Developing right now, we could learn if Chisago County's Teamsters Union will hit the picket line. Teamsters Local 320, which represents Health and Human Services employees, authorized a strike last week after weeks of negotiations with the county. The union's asking for higher salaries and better health insurance benefits. The strike could start anytime between now and midnight on May 1st. The country says they have contingency plans in place to continue critical services. Right now, a Twin Cities school district is off the grid in response to a ransomware attack. Spring Lake Park schools canceled all classes, childcare, and community education for the second day. Kent Erdahl set out to learn more about how schools are forced to respond.
The number you are calling is temporarily unavailable.
Spring Lake Park schools were virtually unreachable Monday.
Please try later.
But if you're wondering what the district is facing in this ransomware attack,
it's surreal.
Kent Backel certainly has some perspective.
Patience and understanding as we work to resolve this situation as quickly as possible.
The Rochester superintendent navigated a ransomware attack in 2023, which disrupted school long after classes came back.
We literally lived for 6 weeks, literally with no technology. And there was a veteran math teacher, and she literally was wheeling an overhead projector into her classroom. And she's like, I saved this for 20 years because I knew there'd be a day when I'd need it. That part of it was funny. The part that was not funny is I would get calls on my cell phone telling me that they were actually going to release our data on the dark web, and people would be able to know every disability that a kid had in Rochester if we didn't pay.
This is the lost warning.
Pakel saved some of the messages from those ransom calls.
Make up your mind, finally. We are sick of waiting.
But he says these weren't the only tough calls.
People were wanting, do I have to change my bank account? Do I have to change my credit cards? Am I personally vulnerable? And the hard thing is you actually, especially in the early periods, you don't know.
9 times in 10, they're after money. This is a financial play, plain and simple.
Bryce Austin is a cybersecurity professional who works with a growing number of schools in need of help. According to the latest report from the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, for K-12 schools, cyber incidents are so prevalent that on average, there's more than 1 incident per school day.
I think the number of issues that are reported is just the tip of the iceberg to how big this problem is.
And when that problem hits, like it has in Spring Lake Park, he encourages schools not to pay the ransom while focusing on the basics first.
Normally during a recovery effort, you try to make a list of what are the minimum number of viable systems you have to conduct class, and those are the ones you start with.
We needed to make sure cameras and secure entrances were fully operational, and we were able to get that up very quickly.
Pakel says if the Spring Lake Park attack is anything like Rochester's, it will get better eventually.
Turns out they didn't have all of the access that they claimed to have, but you're flying blind when you're at that moment. And they're pretty sophisticated in trying to threaten you.
The Minnesota House Fraud Committee met to discuss Governor Walz's anti-fraud package, and it's just one of several fraud bills at the Capitol right now, while the clock is ticking to get something signed into law. Here's Danny Spiewak.
There's no such thing as an easy day in Minnesota's divided legislature.
In a tied House, I mean, everything is a struggle.
But DFL Representative Dave Pinto and his Republican colleagues are working diligently on several fraud prevention bills right now that actually might stand a chance of passing.
I think there's a recognition that fraud is completely unacceptable.
For example, a bipartisan bill included in the governor's package to expand authority of all state agencies to stop payments when fraud is suspected is awaiting action on the House floor. And both parties support funding for upgraded technology at the county level to ensure accurate Medicaid enrollment.
I think it's one of the best things we can do to address fraud. How can we address fraud if we don't have the tools?
Also on Monday, the Senate Judiciary Committee advanced a bill that would grow the Attorney General's Medicaid Fraud Control Unit staff from 32 to 50, after Democrats on the committee agreed to a Republican amendment slightly limiting the AG's subpoena powers.
If Minnesota wants to stop Medicaid fraud, I got to get this bill through.
There's also optimism around creating a statewide Office of Inspector General to investigate fraud. After passing the Senate, that bill hit partisan gridlock in the House, but has now moved through 2 committees.
I've got colleagues in my caucus, fellow Democrats, who've been working on that very hard, along with colleagues in the other caucuses as well. And I think the odds are good that they're going to get there.
So it's going to come down to where are our spending priorities, and that's very top of the list for us. And then we'll get it to the floor, hopefully, and then it'll have to match up with the Senate.
Despite the bipartisan interest in these bills, you can expect significant negotiation across the parties and both chambers over the next several weeks. Lawmakers have until May 18th to finish all of their work. At the Capitol, I'm Danny Spiewak, KARE 11 News.
Today marks 140 years since the deadliest tornado in Minnesota history devastated the Sauk Rapids area. Felicity Dockel has the story of the storm they didn't see coming.
The entire landscape of Sauk Rapids changed just due to that one storm.
April 14th, 1886 was a normal day, but that afternoon,
chaos broke loose. A lot of people, with how wide the cyclone actually was, didn't really realize what it was until it was on top of them.
You would see this dark cloud, this wall of wind approaching, and you would have very little time to react. And that's a scary time to be alive.
The tornado formed in St. Cloud, narrowly missed downtown, crossed the Mississippi River, and virtually destroyed Sauk Rapids. 72 people died, more than 200 were hurt, and a wedding just north of Sauk Rapids in Rice was met with tragedy.
We haven't seen anything like it since in Minnesota.
We have a 13-minute special featuring survivor stories and meteorologist Ben Derry sharing the science behind these kinds of storms. You can watch The Storm They Didn't See Coming here on KARE 11 Plus tonight at 7:15 and again at 10:35. Stick with us. We have more news and weather coming up after the break.